Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Or
It should be good sound,
okay,
right?
great.
Yes, we can hear.
Arij, I really want to say sorry about your brother. And Arij is right. It happens so often, and it's not very common for these things to be reported. And people in the West don't understand how often these things happen and how terrible it is on the ground. The the situation on the ground is very grim, and it's very scary because it's being covered up, whitewashed, pushed aside, and and repackaged. So the princess came out and said that male guardianship is ended. Women can now open a bank account, and I can drive a car, and I can go where I want. But then she didn't say the ifs or the buts. Here's the ifs or the buts. The ifs or the buts is there's still a disobedience law. So I could say to my father, I don't want to go to college, and I could go get a job as a shopkeeper, and he could report me as being disobedient, and I could go to a prison and be tortured until I decided to be obedient. That's women's situation. The personal status law repackaged male guardianship and did worse than that. It codified it. It codified it and put it into practice. When people like Manal al-Sharif and Lujain drove a car, if you looked at the legal context, there was no law restricting women from driving, but in practice, women weren't allowed to drive, so they didn't let them. But if you argued it legally from a legal standpoint, women could have driven. This is why you saw Lujain and Manal do it. So what they did was they got rid of male guardianship as in words, and they codified it in the personal status law, which was released on International Women's Day. And the worst part is that it was not even put together by a single woman. No single woman had any involvement in writing a law that affects women directly. That's messed up. What I want to close with is that we do have power. The fans have power. I want you to look at the fact that MBS was set to visit the UK after he bought the Newcastle team in August. He didn't come because of the protests. They won't say that in the media, but that's the truth. He's afraid. Every dictator is afraid. And it's our job to keep doing the movement, and movement creates friction, and friction creates fire. And that's the fire that we want. He was set to come in August. He didn't come. Then he said he was coming at the end of the year, and he didn't come. So now they're saying he's coming at the beginning of next year. And if we keep moving, he's not going to come. He wants to live. He wants to keep doing what he's doing. And he's probably the worst ruler we've ever had in the Middle East, because there have been more executions that I've ever seen. And honestly, it's a lot to handle, even from where I am. And I really urge anyone who has these situations, if you're in a situation where you're in a position where you can speak, you should speak, because silence is not helping any of us. And I know it's hard because they don't just go after us, they go after our families, they go after your cousins. My Saudi uncle disappeared when I was 6, and I never found out what happened to him, and nobody would speak about it. And people just don't come back. The torture is real. The women's rights violations are real. The execution of minors is real. And the problem is that a lot of the media and the West don't know that it's real, or they don't believe that it's real, because all they see are these social media influencers saying, come to Saudi. I'm a full-fledged American citizen born on American soil, and I grew up as a Saudi girl, and I had no rights. I couldn't leave. Even when I went to the airport, the immigration officer looked at me and laughed and told me I'm not going anywhere until my father says so. My father, who's not actually my father, he's my stepfather. Now, if they can do that to me, who wants to go to a World Cup in Saudi Arabia? Anyways, I'm going to turn it back over to you, John.